I have to be honest with you about something. I debated whether to make this video, not because the information is complicated, but because of what it implies about the advice most doctors are giving right now. I have spent over 22 years in clinical medicine. I have sat across from thousands of patients. And what I'm about to share is something that makes many of my colleagues deeply uncomfortable because it challenges a narrative that has gone unchallenged for far too long. Every single morning, millions of people over the age of 50 wake up exhausted. Not just a little groggy, genuinely bone-deep tired. And they do what they have been told is completely fine. They push through it. They drink their coffee, they tell themselves they are just getting older, and they move on. What we now know, what the research has quietly confirmed over the last decade, is that waking up tired every morning is not a normal part of aging. It is a warning. And ignoring it day after day can set off a chain of biological events inside your body that goes far deeper than sleep. I am going to walk you through exactly what that chain looks like and what you can do about it starting today. And here is where the story starts to get uncomfortable. Most people, when they talk about waking up tired, frame it as a sleep problem. They think about mattresses. They think about how many hours they got. They might even mention it briefly to their doctor, who nods, says something about sleep hygiene, and moves on to the next item on the agenda. That has been the standard response for decades. But the exhaustion that millions of people over 50 experience every single morning is not simply about the quantity of their sleep. It runs much deeper than that, and the medical community has been slow, genuinely slow, to address it honestly with patients. So, what is actually happening when you close your eyes for 7 or 8 hours and still wake up feeling like you never slept at all? Before I answer that directly, I need you to understand something about the architecture of sleep itself. Because most people think of sleep as a single event. You go under, you come back up, and the quality depends mostly on how long you were under. But sleep is not one thing. It is a series of precisely timed biological stages, each doing a completely different job inside your body. And when those stages are disrupted, even subtly, even in ways you would never feel or notice in the moment, the damage accumulates in silence. I had a patient not long ago, a retired contractor in his early 60s, who told me he was sleeping 8 to 9 hours every night, but waking up feeling worse than when he went to bed. He had been living this way for nearly 4 years. 4 years of pushing through, 4 years of assuming it was just age catching up with him. What his blood work told us was a different story entirely. And the longer this kind of disrupted, non-restorative sleep continues, the more your body begins to pay a price that goes well beyond tiredness. We are talking about inflammation. We are talking about hormonal dysregulation. We are talking about cardiovascular strain that builds quietly in the background while you are busy just trying to get through your day. That is not aging. That is your body sending a signal that something is wrong. And the signal is getting louder. But that is not even the part of this story that concerned me most. What comes next is, I wish I had known this sooner. Because the truth is, the science here has been available for years, quietly sitting in research journals while the mainstream conversation stayed focused on the wrong things. Let me explain what is actually happening inside your body during what scientists call non-restorative sleep. Your brain, during deep sleep, activates a system called the glymphatic system. Think of it as your brain's overnight cleaning crew. While you sleep, cerebrospinal fluid, basically the clear liquid that cushions your brain, flows through the spaces between brain cells, literally flushing out metabolic waste products that built up during the day. One of those waste products is a protein called amyloid beta, which, and this is the part I need you to hear, has been directly linked to the development of cognitive decline and dementia. When your deep sleep stages are repeatedly cut short or fragmented, that cleaning cycle does not complete. The waste does not get fully cleared. Night after night, year after year, it accumulates. I treated a woman in her late 60s, a sharp, active woman who ran her own small business, who came to me complaining of morning exhaustion and what she called brain fog that was getting harder to shake off. She was not imagining it. What was happening in her brain during the night was measurable, and it was affecting her daytime cognition in ways that would only get worse without intervention. Research published through the National Institutes of Health has confirmed that disruptions to glymphatic clearance during sleep are associated with an increased risk of neurodegenerative disease over time. That is not a fringe theory. That is peer-reviewed science. And yet most people have never once heard their doctor mention the glymphatic system in a conversation about tiredness. Your brain is trying to clean itself every single night. If you are waking up exhausted, there is a very real possibility that cleaning process is being interrupted. And the consequences of that interruption reach far beyond how you feel at 7 in the morning. There is one more piece of this story, and it changes everything. What changed everything for me in my practice, in how I think about morning fatigue entirely, was understanding what happens to cortisol when sleep is chronically disrupted. Cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone. Most people know it as the thing that rises when you are anxious or under pressure. But cortisol also has a precise daily rhythm. It is supposed to peak in the early morning. That natural surge is actually what helps you feel alert and ready to begin the day. Think of it like a biological alarm clock built into your bloodstream. When sleep architecture is disrupted night after night, that cortisol rhythm, known as the cortisol awakening response, begins to flatten or invert. Instead of rising cleanly in the morning, the way it should, it stays elevated at night when it should be low, and it fails to surge appropriately when you wake up. The result is that you open your eyes in the morning already running on a broken hormonal signal. You feel heavy. You feel unready. Your body is not giving you what it is supposed to give you after a night of actual rest. I had a patient, a 71-year-old woman who had been telling her previous doctor she was tired every morning for 6 years, who was consistently told her labs were normal. When we ran a salivary cortisol panel and mapped her cortisol curve across the day, the pattern was inverted. Her stress hormone was highest at midnight and lowest at 7 in the morning. Exactly backwards. And because cortisol interacts with insulin, with inflammation markers, and with your immune response, a dysregulated cortisol rhythm does not just make you tired. It quietly increases your risk of metabolic disease, it compromises your immune function, and it creates a low-grade inflammatory state that affects nearly every system in your body. The body does not make clean, isolated mistakes. When one system is off, the others follow. So, if you are waking up tired every single morning and you have been told your blood work is fine, please understand that standard blood work often does not look at this. And that gap in what is being tested is costing people years of their health. There is still more to this story, and the next part is the one I find most surprising. The part of this story that still bothers me, even now, is how many people are experiencing a specific identifiable condition that is directly causing their morning exhaustion, and they have absolutely no idea it exists. The condition is called sleep apnea, and before you move on, because you think you already know about it, I want you to stay with me here, because what most people understand about sleep apnea is only the surface layer. Most people think sleep apnea means loud snoring and gasping for air. And yes, sometimes it looks exactly like that. But in a significant portion of people over 50, particularly in women, where the presentation is far more subtle, sleep apnea causes no dramatic snoring at all. Instead, it causes what researchers call micro-arousals. Tiny, partial awakenings that last only seconds. Awakenings so brief your conscious mind never registers them. You do not remember waking up. You do not know it is happening. But your brain does, and your heart does. So, what is actually happening inside your body during these micro-arousals? Before I explain, I want you to understand how your oxygen levels work during sleep. Your brain expects a consistent supply of oxygen throughout the night. When that supply drops, even briefly, even in increments that seem minor, your body responds with a sharp internal stress response. Adrenaline releases, your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure climbs, and then you drift back to sleep and it happens again and again. Dozens of times per night in some people, hundreds of times in others. I had a patient, a 68-year-old retired accountant who thought he slept just fine, whose overnight sleep study revealed 47 micro-arousals per hour. He had no idea. He had been living with this for years, attributing his exhaustion to stress and age. What those repeated oxygen drops were doing to his cardiovascular system was measurable and serious. The American Heart Association has documented the connection between untreated sleep apnea and increased risk of hypertension, atrial fibrillation, and stroke in older adults. And the most frightening part? In many people over 50, this is going completely undiagnosed because the symptoms, morning fatigue, afternoon brain fog, mild irritability, are written off as normal aging. They are not. And now that we understand what is happening, let us talk about what you can actually do about it. And here is what I should have told my patients years ago, before the conversation about sleep became so oversimplified that it was reduced to counting hours and buying better pillows. The first and most important thing I want you to take away from this video is that morning fatigue that persists every day for more than a few weeks is a symptom, not a personality trait. It is not who you are. It is not laziness. It is not inevitable aging. It is a signal, and signals deserve investigation. The single most important step you can take right now is to speak with your doctor specifically about a sleep study. Not just a general conversation about sleep, but a formal request for either an in-lab polysomnography or a home sleep apnea test. These tests can reveal what is actually happening during the hours you are unconscious, and the information they provide is genuinely life-changing for many people. I had a patient, a 64-year-old woman, who had spent 3 years trying every sleep supplement on the market, who finally agreed to a sleep study after I explained what we were actually looking for. Her results showed moderate sleep apnea. Within 6 weeks of beginning treatment, she told me it was like someone had turned the lights back on. That is not an exaggeration. That is the biology working the way it is supposed to work. Beyond the sleep study, I want to address something called sleep pressure, which is your body's natural drive to sleep that builds across the day. One of the most effective and underused tools for improving deep sleep quality is strict wake time consistency. Not bedtime, wake time. When you wake up at the same time every single morning, regardless of how you feel, you anchor your circadian rhythm in a way that gradually restores the hormonal timing your body depends on. It sounds almost too simple. But the research behind circadian anchoring in adults over 50 is genuinely compelling, and it costs nothing. The second piece, and I want to be specific here, involves your light exposure within the first 30 minutes of waking. Natural morning light, even on a cloudy day, triggers a cortisol awakening response that begins to reset your internal clock. This is not wellness advice. This is photobiology. Your retinas contain specialized cells that communicate directly with the part of your brain that controls your circadian rhythm. Using them correctly matters. But there is more to cover, and the next part is where this becomes truly actionable. I want to keep going because there is another layer here that most people never reach in conversations about morning fatigue, and that is the role of what you eat and when you eat it in the hours before sleep. Your gut and your brain are in constant communication through what researchers call the gut-brain axis. And what happens in your digestive system during the evening hours has a direct and measurable effect on the quality of your deep sleep stages. Specifically, late evening meals that are high in refined carbohydrates cause a rapid rise and fall in blood sugar during the night. That blood sugar crash, which typically happens in the early hours of morning, triggers a mild stress response in your body, which disrupts your deepest sleep stages right at the point when your glymphatic cleaning cycle should be completing. The result? You wake up feeling unrefreshed, even if you technically slept long enough. A patient I saw not long ago, a 70-year-old man who had struggled with morning fatigue for years, made one change on my recommendation. He moved his last meal to at least 3 hours before bed and replaced his evening snack with a small amount of protein and healthy fat. Within 2 weeks, he reported waking up feeling more rested than he had in years. One change. 2 weeks, because the biology responds when you give it what it needs. I also want to mention magnesium glycinate specifically because the research on magnesium and sleep quality in adults over 50 is worth knowing about. As we age, magnesium absorption decreases, and magnesium plays a direct role in regulating the nervous system's ability to move into and maintain deep sleep. This is not a supplement I push casually, but the evidence from studies indexed on PubMed supports its consideration for adults experiencing non-restorative sleep. Talk to your doctor before adding anything new. That conversation matters. And one more thing. If any of what I have described today feels uncomfortably familiar, the waking up exhausted, the brain fog, the years of pushing through, I want you to type the word same in the comments right now, because you are not alone in this. Not even close. I have watched so many people carry this quietly for years, assuming it was just life, just age, just the way things were now. It is not. And you deserve to know that. You just spent real time learning something that most people will scroll past without ever understanding. And I want you to know that matters. The fact that you stayed, that you listened, that you are taking this seriously, that is the difference between catching something early and finding out too late that you had years of better health available to you that no one told you how to access. I made this video because I kept seeing the same pattern. In my clinic, in the research I was reading, and honestly, in people I care about personally. People who were waking up every morning feeling defeated by their own bodies, who had been told everything was fine when everything was not fine at all. The morning exhaustion that millions of people over 50 accept as normal is not normal. It is a conversation your body is trying to have with you about your brain's overnight cleaning cycles, about your cortisol rhythm, about oxygen levels dropping silently in the night, about blood sugar crashes dismantling your deepest sleep before dawn. These are not abstract medical concepts. They are things happening inside real people, maybe inside you, right now, today, at a level that is both treatable and reversible when caught in time. What I want for you, genuinely, not as a content goal or an algorithm outcome, is for you to wake up one morning and feel like yourself again. Not exhausted before the day has even begun, not relying on caffeine just to reach a baseline of functional. Actually rested, actually restored. I want that because I have seen what happens when people take this seriously and act on it. I have watched people in their 60s and 70s rediscover energy they thought was gone forever. And I know that is available to you too. If something in this conversation felt like it was speaking directly to your life, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. A spouse, a sibling, a friend who has been quietly pushing through the same exhaustion for years. And if you want to keep learning together, if you want to keep having the kind of honest conversations about your health that you deserve to have, stay with us. I will be here, and I will keep telling you the things you need to know